All right, ladies, welcome back to another Friday episode. And I'm going to continue on with what I was talking about last week. And last week, I kicked off this three-part series talking about what are the three weight loss lessons that I've learned over the last 15 years. And so go back to last week so you can hear what I talked about last week. So the second thing I learned was that all right, how about this? I can't follow a diet, right? I follow a diet and then until I can't, right? Because if you think about most diets are about restriction. They give you a list of do not eat this, and only a handful of things are good. And most of the foods that you like aren't on that list. And so you find yourself like kind of, white knuckling it, kind of like, making it to a point until you can't anymore. And, I get it, right? Back in the day, that was what you did. And if you worked with me back in the day, I gave you a meal plan. I followed a meal plan for decades. And now, I was on the phone call with the women who are in my metabolic recharge program. And we were laughing about the meal plans that we followed back in the day and certain foods that we just can't eat anymore. Like I no longer can eat any type of white fish. I can no longer eat any type of frozen vegetable because I lived off of that for decades. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't do meal plans anymore, because it just like burns you out of certain foods, but it also doesn't teach you how to build great habits around food and strengthen your relationship with food. And so that's the biggest reason, one of the reasons why I stopped is like I just see so many people having this like fear relationship around food, like, oh my God, if I have a carb, what's gonna happen to me? Or if I have a banana, if I have fruit, if I eat after 6 o'clock, oh my God, the food police are gonna come ringing my doorbell. And I want us, we're over 40, like for the love of God, like let's just stop having food make such powerful points in our life, right? There's other things like for the amount of time that I spent thinking about food and if I should have this, or if I did eat it, then good God, why did I eat it? I could have probably cured cancer. Like seriously, I could have cured cancer and there would be like peace in Ukraine if I used the half the amount of brain power that I used about thinking about food and my weight and so on and so forth. And so if you want, I want you to think about it like this, right? We've all used a Band-Aid. We've put a Band-Aid on ourselves, we put a Band-Aid on our kids. If I put a Band-Aid over, a meal plan is like putting a Band-Aid over your food issues. If I take the Band-Aid off, the wound's still there. Maybe it might be healed a little bit. Maybe it still might look pretty fresh, but the wound's still there. So what I propose is that we focus on building habits around our food that are positive and helpful versus restrictive and punitive, right? So many of us are like, if I have X number of food, I have to go to the gym and burn it off. If I have X number of calorie over my calorie limit, I got to restrict on the backside, or we make up all of these rules to like, playing this kind of like game of math. And one of my mentors says it best. Our metabolism is not like a calculator. It is more like a barometer. The harder I push on it, the more it's going to push back, right? It's going to come back at me like tenfold. It's kind of like, I think about your metabolism is like poking the bear, right? As long as you like leave the bear alone, the bear's going to be fine. But as soon as I like poke the bear's going to be like, what the hell? And come at me hard. Come at me like, you do not want a piece of this. One of my favorite movies is the movie Elf. And there's a scene where Will Ferrell is sitting in a conference room, and it's the guy who is in the Game of Thrones, he's a little person, he's in the Game of Thrones, and he's in this movie. And so he's like, oh my God, you brought an elf from the North Pole. This is fabulous. And then he keeps saying elf, elf, elf. And then he goes, you call me elf one more time. And he comes running down the bench, running down the table at him and just like attacks him. So that's what your metabolism is going to do, right? It's going to be like, you're going to call it elf one more time and it's going to come running down the table at you. So here's where, look, I have 4 pillars when it comes to weight loss. And one of them is habits. And if we don't start building these healthy habits, it's we're never going to solve the puzzle, right? Habits is one piece of the puzzle, because when I have great habits, I have great routines. When I have great routines, that builds consistency. When I have consistency, boom, I have results. That is the Fit Girl Magic formula. Okay. And so if if we're working through those things of like, how do I build strong habits? Then that's where I'm going to get the results. It's not if I have freaking kale as a superfood or I'm having some particular supplement. That's not what's going to get you the results, especially for the long term. So when you have positive habits around food and you make your 80% of your choices better 80% of the time, then you don't feel like you're missing out or you don't feel like you're on a diet, right? You are able to make decisions from power versus decisions from fear and deprivation. Because when we make decisions from fear and deprivation, we don't make good decisions, right? We go with that knee jerk reaction versus the I know where I am, I if you've worked with me for a long time, and anytime my clients have have a bad weekend, I'm like, just own it, own it. It was a holiday, I own it. It was vacation, I own it. So that as long as we own it, and then when we own it, that means we can say we've taken responsibility, right? Because so many times I hear from people, oh, well, it was Easter, or, I was out with friends, or it was so and so's birthday, right? And it makes it seem like that happened to you versus you made a conscious decision. And so when I start to own this, then I can start to be able to make better decisions for the next time this event happens. And I'm not saying that like when a holiday comes, you can't enjoy food. Like, no, not at all. But I'm saying, do you have to like waddle out away from the table? One of my biggest challenges is like Thanksgiving comes and everyone's like, oh my God. Right. And I'm like, okay, it's dinner, right? Maybe, and you're having dinner with people that you don't normally have dinner with. So maybe you are going to have a little bit different foods than you eat. But again, do you have to waddle away from the table? Do you have to borrow a friend's pregnancy pants and be like, it's going down? So I want you to think about, what happens every time you follow a diet? How long can you follow that diet? Because diets do work. I will tell you that they do work. However, they work until they don't, right? They work because they don't teach you how to build your habits. They teach you how to be on that diet. And as soon as your life gets a little bit more complicated, as soon as your life takes a turn that you can't do whatever the diet calls for you to do, you're going to, fall off the wagon, and then you're going to get pissed, and then you're going to be off searching for the new thing. So one of the things I work with clients with is like, how do we build our habits? How do we, maybe the diet has a nice structure for you, which is great. I know everyone loves structure, but how do we make it work for your life? How do we make it realistic for you? How do we make it something you're excited about? How do we make it something that can be a plan for you? And how do we ultimately make it sustainable? Because the sustainability piece is, I think, is what's always missing in any diet. No one can live in that like plastic bubble life. If you do, rock on with your bad self. But most of the women who work with me, we got messy lives. And if you have a messy life and you want to figure out like how to best serve your long-term health and stay freaking sane, do me a favor, hit me up. You can find me at Kim Jefferson on Instagram. All right, enjoy the rest of your Friday, and I will talk to you next week.